fine. You're right. Triumph does make some pretty fun motorcycles.
Okay, so the Rocket 3 is a little bit like Evel Knievel. It doesn't really need an introduction, but I'm gonna do one anyway. It is the biggest production motorcycle motor out there, dwarfing Harley's 135 crate motor and anything coming from the Big Four or the Italians. Yes, the Boss Hoss does exist, but that's a Chevy motor and bikes are made to order, so I don't really count it. In a range of products that are built on the backbone of heritage and glued together with pomade and coffee grounds, the Rocket 3 is no different. It's derived from the 1968 BSA Rocket 3, which was a 750cc triple that was also seen in the Triumph Trident. You see, Triumph doesn't do anything unless they can point to some obscure bike from yesteryear to tug at your nostalgic heartstrings. I don't blame them either, it just keeps working. Anyway, back in the 90s, Triumph saw how much money Harley and Honda were raking in from selling bikes to Midwestern dads and wanted a piece of that pie. Triumph tasked their in-house designer John Mockett, who worked on the Bonneville refresh and the Tiger, to get to work making a chromed out dad bike. Originally, they had a 1600cc triple, but while they were going through the focus group testing, Yamaha dropped the Warrior with a 1670cc V-twin, and Honda came out with the VTX 1800. So Triumph went back to Mockett and told him that 1600 cc's was rookie numbers. Were rookie numbers. Was a rookie number. Can you believe that English is my first language and I graduated from college? The Warrior and the VTX set the Rocket 3 back another 2 years. When it was finally revealed in San Antonio of all places, it had a 2,294cc triple and claimed 148 horsepower and 163 foot-pounds of torque. The bike was capable of putting down 90% of its torque at 2,000 RPM, so imagine what this was like on 2004 era tech. The starter motor by itself put down more power than Triumph's first motorcycle at 1.75 horsepower. When it first came out, it wasn't a huge success. I mean, all the Harley riders were still trying to wrap their air-cooled brains around the V-Rod, so another liquid-cooled bike with a whole extra cylinder simply did not compute. Triumph repositioned it to go head-to-head against the V-Max, and then it found some traction, until 2015 when Triumph gently pressed the pillow of dwindling sales against the Rocket 3's face and lovingly smothered it to death. Then they hired Garthanax, the friendly neighborhood necromancer, to resurrect it in 2019 with a 2458cc triple putting down 170 horsepower and 163 foot-pounds of torque. Seriously, that motor is bigger than what's in my Mazda. It's got a full suite of rider modes, electronics, TFT dash. Quite frankly, it's got everything. Like driving power, big fat tires, and everything. But maybe your bike doesn't. Maybe you're on an ancient clapped-out 600 like me and you wish that you had something nicer than just the sun-bleached LCD calculator dashboard you're always looking at. Well, that's where our sponsor Chigee comes in. Chigee is the best in the business when it comes to aftermarket dashboards. They have their AIO5, which is a handlebar-mounted dash with forward and rearward-facing cameras that can act as blind spot monitors, and they're always recording. It's got OBD scanner compatibility so you can pull data from the bike, and Android Auto, among a bunch of other cool features. Or better still, you can check out their AIO6, which has everything from the AIO5 and more, including a quick detach cradle so that you can move the screen from one bike to another in seconds. Me personally, I like using Chigee dashboards on my track bikes so that it'll record laps for me, but if you're a commuter, the AIO6 is a no-brainer. Click that link down in the description to pre-order one and get 23% off for a limited time. Now, is there anybody out there who wants to go fast?
I want to go fast. Hey, get him a suit.
Alrighty, folks, let's have some fun, because honestly, I've been riding this thing around, and the biggest thing that it is doing is putting a gigantic smile on my face. It is. I'm going to coin a new term, and we'll talk about it again a little bit later, but this is maximum Neanderthal Ooga Booga mode in terms of power delivery. It is dirt stupid how much power it gives you, and when it gives it to you, it's just like, you know, whee! It's the only thing it wants to do is this. That's it. That's all this bike wants to do. It just wants you to go wide open throttle everywhere. It is amazing how much power it has. It literally, it's dilating time. That's the best way I can describe the power delivery to you guys. Is I feel like when I'm riding, the world stops, like I stop accelerating towards things and things accelerate towards me. It feels like I'm literally moving the earth beneath the rear tire. It feels like everything, I stop moving and everything comes towards me. The only other motorcycle where I've experienced something like that is on the Hayabusa. I think it's probably just because of how instant the power is delivered. It's just like, boom. I don't think I've ever ridden a motorcycle with this kind of power delivery. However, one thing I will note is the power delivery in first gear is a little bit modulated, shall we say. It's like there's a very definite film between you and the bike in first gear. You can feel the electronics working to make the bike rideable. And I understand why it does that, because if the bike just gave you everything all at once, people would be doing nothing but lighting up the rear tire like they're driving a 5.0 in high school. And that's where I get that sort of like Neanderthal power delivery. It's brutal, it's savage, and it's everywhere. And there's nothing sophisticated about it. there's nothing sophisticated about this power delivery. It's just like, here you go. And I think that's part of the reason why it is just putting a giant smile on my face. It's just like, it is the only triple I have ridden where I'm just like, I want to keep going. I want to keep riding it. This is so much fun. But one of the things that makes this bike more fun to ride, there's two things. One, the brakes are phenomenal. The front brake feel is incredible. The amount of stopping power that this bike gives you with just one finger, like here, dive into this corner, one finger. It's shocking how quick this bike stops. It's unreal. And I right now, I'm just going to tell you, I don't know what this bike weighs. We're going to talk, we probably already talked about it in the specs, but as I'm riding it, I don't know what this bike weighs, but it doesn't feel like it weighs anything over 400 and maybe 40 pounds. But the way it carries its weight is incredible. I cannot stress enough how light this bike feels. It is magical. I've ridden some bikes where they're heavy, but they carry their weight well. Something like the BMW. But the second the BMW gets on the side of the tire, it feels heavy again. The second it gets on the side of the tire. Coming off the kickstand, this thing feels light. Going through a corner, this thing feels light. Coming to a stop, it feels light. Accelerating, it feels light. And again, just that front brake feel. I have an RCS 19 on my Sportster, just because I'm stupid. I put an RCS 19 master cylinder on there, which is like a racing master cylinder. And I have one on my CBR 600 F4i, and my Tuono has a really, really, really good master cylinder. This, I think, is one of the best braking feels I've ever felt outside of a super sport, outside of a hyper naked. I think it's because of how big that front tire is, because it just feels like I've got an infinite contact patch. And speaking of infinite contact patches, you just roll through a corner on this thing. It just dips right into a corner, real nice and smooth. And it holds the line really good. I don't know what Triumph did with this motorcycle. I really don't. I don't know how this works as well as it does, but it's amazing. It is truly a jaw-dropping motorcycle. And it's so confidence inspiring, man. It is so easy to use this amount of power. It's insane. It's so good. and it just puts a giant ear-to-ear grin on my face. It's so much fun. I think I would assume a lot of rocket guys are doing this sort of thing, like maintenance throttle, and then it gets straight, immediate wide open throttle. Oh, maintenance throttle through a corner, wide open throttle. Get on the brakes a little bit, maintenance throttle, and wide open throttle. This is so stupid that it works this well. I don't get it, but it is so much fun to ride. It is one of the most fun motorcycles to ride I think I've ever ridden. It is so much fun. But it is not perfect. So let's pull over on the side of the road and talk about some pros and cons on this thing that I've been noticing the more I've been riding it.
Okay, now we have to talk about it again because it is probably the most amazing thing about this motorcycle. It is the way that this 705-pound bike has distributed the weight on this thing. It weighs so much. It is so heavy, and yet you wouldn't know it by moving it around. It, like off the side stand, it's as light as a naked bike. Back and forth, it's as light as a naked bike. It's insane how light this bike feels, and yet it weighs 705 pounds. Along with it, again, the ooga booga factor, the caveman Neanderthal nature of the power delivery. It suits this bike so well because you whack the throttle wide open, the shaft lifts you up, and you're just sitting there giggling as it's bucking its way down the street. It's so much fun. However, there is one thing I've noticed with this motor, or maybe it's the transmission, maybe it's the clutch, I'm not 100% sure, but it feels funny leaving first gear. Let me show you. Spectacular! I don't mind it, but if you want it to be super smooth, maybe that's not for you. That is a small thing, for sure. A very small thing. And to me, it's character, but somebody else may look at it and be like, that's not right. But let's talk about some genuine cons with this motorcycle. First and foremost, if you're riding this thing in Texas, where it's hot, or any other, Australia, or anywhere where it gets properly warm, sitting in traffic with this thing sucks, man. It is so hot. The exhaust headers are right up under your nads. This bike got so hot, it didn't overheat. Don't get me wrong, the bike was fine. It just sends so much heat up at you as the rider that if you're not moving with this thing, it really sucks. Riding this thing in traffic is not fun. Also, you don't get to play with the power, so of course traffic sucks. Another thing that sucks, I hate key fobs. For some reason, everybody's switching to key fobs now, like, this is a car, but we can put a key in this motorcycle Triumph. You don't need this, because I know how much one of these costs if you lose it. Just give me a key next time, please. Also, if it runs out of battery, how are you gonna start the motorcycle? The next con is definitely something that is situational, and it's gonna depend highly on your height. So as we mount up on the motorcycle, you can see that I'm pretty comfortable on this thing. I've got enough room that I can feel comfy moving around. The reach of the bars is nice. However, if I were an inch taller, this would be uncomfortable. And I'm, to give you an idea, I'm 6'3" in my boots and all my gear. So yeah, I'm pushing the limit of this thing because the butt shelf right here, which is so important on a bike that's making this much power, it is right up under your tailbone. And when you're sitting on it, you blow through the cushiness and it feels like there's a hard part right there that's sitting right on your tailbone. Another thing, this giant keister carrier right here, it's wrapping itself so much around your butt cheeks that you can't move side to side on the bike. So if you're a sporty rider and you're used to moving yourself side to side on the bike to get it to turn, and maybe even to shed off just a few degrees of lean when you're out riding on the street, you can't do that on this motorcycle. It is very difficult to do. That's not a huge deal because of how much tire you have to work with on this thing, but it is something to note that you're stuck there. If the ergonomic setup does not work for you, you are stuck with this. I'm sure there are going to be aftermarket seats that solve that problem, but it is worth pointing out that this is a $26,000 motorcycle, and spending another $1,000 on a seat, it doesn't sound like a lot of fun to me. Actually, you know what? Let's see. Is there any adjustability in this? I could be talking out my butt. It'll smooth out my beehole.
Excuse me, I'd like to ask you a few questions.
No adjustability. So yeah, you're stuck with it. It does say that it's okay though. The bike's like, yeah, okay. This is another con for me. I don't love the way that Triumph's electronics work. They just are a little bit finicky and fiddly. I kind of wish that they were just a little bit simpler, like on the Aprilias or, I mean, even Ducati. It's easier to get through some of the menus on this. The cruise control is really fiddly on it. I couldn't figure out how to turn it off. I mean, it does have the roll forward to kill and it's got the reset and stuff, but I was like pressing and holding the set button, which is to turn it on. So usually that's how you turn it off, but no. However, I'm so glad Triumph fixed this one. It doesn't have to be in neutral to start it. Used to be when you started a Triumph, it had to be in neutral. That was really, really annoying. But now you can just have the clutch pulled in and you're fine. I'm gonna keep the highway section on this thing pretty brief because it's a Rocket 3 GT. It's designed to be comfortable, so it's probably pretty comfortable out on the highway.
All right, so I'm endeavoring to keep this short and sweet because there's not really a lot to talk about when it comes to the Rocket 3 on the highway. It's just really good. It's smoother than you would expect. That's the thing. A lot of triple cylinder motorcycles that I ride at highway speed, they're very buzzy, but this thing, buttery smooth. However, you're probably hearing it in the helmet. There's a significant headwind and it is just hitting me right in the face. It doesn't help that I have all this camera equipment right here. That definitely causes the wind to be worse. But I will say that even with this on there, the wind is hitting me kind of square in the nose. So if you're doing a lot of highway riding, you're probably going to want a taller windscreen. Comfort-wise, this bike is so smooth and so easy to ride. It's just, I'm just couched out, man. I feel like I'm in a Barca Lounger. It is so nice on the highway. I'm really, really digging it. So let's get this thing back in the Twisties, and I want to talk about this thing relative to the other muscle cruisers out there. Now I've been thinking about one thing throughout the day, and that is, what muscle cruiser is my favorite? I have ridden every muscle cruiser that matters at this point, basically. The only one that I can think of off the top of my head that I haven't ridden is the M109R Boss. But Boss guys, I hate to be that guy. That bike is way too heavy and it's not putting down enough power. It's not going to be able to get out of its own way. Now, I could be wrong about that because I haven't ridden it, but just looking at the spec sheet, it's hard for me to imagine a world where the M109R can put down enough power to keep up with a VMAX, to keep up with a V-Rod, or a Diavel, or a Rocket 3. So, you know, again, I'm willing to be wrong, I don't think I am. You could even throw the Sportster S in the mix too, because the idea behind that motorcycle is that it's an engine and two wheels, and that's really kind of the ethos of this bike too. It's an engine and two wheels, quite literally, because there's no chain, there's no nothing. It's just big giant engine block and wheels and a big tank, which is actually smaller than you'd think. I only was able to put 3 gallons in here, 3.1 gallons. And it was empty, basically. It was like 1 bar, so 30 miles left. It's possible that it had another gallon in there, but I kind of doubt it. Now I'm going to say something that I don't think is particularly controversial here. I think that of the muscle cruisers, the Rocket 3 is the best. I think it is the one bike that embodies the muscle cruiser ethos perfectly. I mean, especially the GT right here, because this is more cruiser than sport bike. You know, my feet are kind of out in front of me. It's a relaxed body position, but then I have an amazing amount of power. And you know, this is sporty in its inclination, but it is not that sporty. You know, I end up, because I'm having to park my butt in the seat, I end up taking these corners a lot less quickly than I normally would, because I can't really put body English behind these corners without doing like one of these numbers, and even then it just doesn't feel right. So you end up being more cruisery on this bike. The Diavel is definitely more sport bike inclined than cruiser. You know, the pegs are a little bit further back. The front tire size is definitely a lot more sport bike inspired. The power delivery definitely is a little bit more sport bikey. It helps that it's a giant V-twin, which gives it that sort of like cruiser power band a little bit down low, but the Diavel is a really big party at the top kind of bike. Then you've got the VMAX, which is just gobs of power all over, but it is another bike that's pretty peaky. It's one of the bikes that started the craze. You know, I've got the original genuine article in my garage, and I've ridden the 200 horsepower one. So there's a lot to be said for that bike, especially once you put it on 17s like mine is. And then I also have a V-Rod in the garage, which, by the way, you could enter to win. There's a link down in the description below. And it is a very unique bike, but it's definitely another one of those bikes where power's at the top. It's definitely much more cruiser inspired, though, than a lot of the other ones, with most of the V-Rods having pegs out in front of you. But in terms of just like the actual muscle bike, I don't think there's a bike out there that can really compete with the Rocket 3. This thing is truly a one-of-a-kind motorcycle, and it blows my mind that it is putting down this much power, and again, it feels as light as it does. The real question, though, is this my favorite muscle cruiser? Yeah, that's debatable. I'm really torn right now between the VMAX and the V-Rod for number one. I think the VMAX edges out the V-Rod ever so slightly because it's the original, you know, it's the genuine article, especially because I have such an attachment to the Gen 1 VMAX with my experience with it. The V-Rod is just such a unique motorcycle because it was the one Harley Davidson that just absolutely demolished other bikes. I mean, it was another one-of-a-kind motorcycle. There's not really another bike like the V-Rod. But the Rocket 3 is so high up there. I would rather own a Rocket 3 than the Diavel. I would certainly rather own it over like a Sportster S or something like that. This is, if I wanted a muscle cruiser that, you know, I didn't already own, I'd buy this. I'd probably put this ahead of the V-Rod. So let's set it up. All right, number one is VMAX, but I'm biased towards the VMAX because of my experience with the Gen 1. Then it's Rocket 3, then it's V-Rod, then it's Diavel, then it's Sportster S, and then at the bottom, because I haven't ridden it, is M109R. You could throw in something like the FXDR or the Fat Bob if you want. Those are kind of muscle bikes. But I don't love the Milwaukee 8 so much, so that would definitely be below the Diavel. It's the first time I've really enjoyed the triple cylinder engine note. It's the first time that I've enjoyed the power delivery, because it doesn't feel like a triple. That it doesn't feel like that super linear triple cylinder power delivery. It feels a lot more in your face, like a V-twin. So, you know, you still have Triumph's lovely fueling, and the throttle feel is so good, but the power delivery is exactly like I would want. It's a V-twin style power delivery, and it's another one of those motors where it kind of just falls on its face when it's done. You know, it's just like, nah, I'm revved out, I'm good, next gear please. The Rocket 3 is going to get 2 massive thumbs ups from me. I cannot recommend this motorcycle highly enough. It would be nice if there was an easier way to get into the Rocket 3, if there was a cheaper option. You know, maybe one that has, I don't even know what you would cut on this bike, to be honest, to get the price down. But, you know, these are $25,000 motorcycles, so they damn well better be the best of the best. But yeah, this is a truly incredible bike, and I'm so glad that I got to ride it and spend a real amount of time with it. This is such an insane motorcycle, and I love it to bits. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. I had a lot of fun making it, and I'm gonna keep riding this thing. It's just too much fun. It is too much fun. Don't forget to check out Chigee down in the description below, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. See you later.